Jake Morrison's head hurt badly when he woke up. The cold metal floor under his back felt rough and dirty. His mouth tasted like blood and his right eye was swollen shut. He tried to remember what happened, but everything was fuzzy and dark. Slowly, the memories came back. The battle at Kepler Station. Explosions everywhere, his ship getting hit by enemy fire. The escape pod spinning out of control. Then the gray aliens with their big black eyes pulling him from the wreckage. Jake sat up carefully and looked around. He was in a small room with metal walls on all sides. There was no window and only one door made of thick steel. A single light hung from the ceiling, giving off a weak yellow glow. The air smelled bad, like old metal and something he could not name. His uniform was torn and dirty. The name tag still said, Morrison, J, Captain, but his rank pins were gone. So were his boots. The aliens had taken almost everything except his basic clothes. Jake touched his face where it hurt the most. His lip was split and dried blood covered his chin. The aliens had not been gentle when they captured him. But he was alive, and that meant something. The door made a loud noise and slid open. 3 gray aliens walked in. They were taller than humans, maybe 7 feet high, with long, thin arms and legs. Their skin looked like old leather, and their eyes were completely black with no white parts at all. They wore dark blue uniforms with strange symbols on them. The one in front spoke. In broken English, "Human warrior, you wake. Good." Jake said nothing. He had been trained for this. Name, rank, and service number, nothing else. "I am Commander Zethkar of Vorthan Empire," the alien continued. "You are prisoner of war. You will answer questions." Jake stood up slowly, trying not to show how much his body hurt. "Captain Jake. Morrison, Earth Defense Fleet, service number 779421. The alien made a sound that might have been laughing. "We know this already, human. We want to know about your ships, your weapons, your battle plans." "Captain Jake Morrison, Earth Defense Fleet, service number 779421. Commander Zethkar stepped closer. His black eyes reflected the weak light. "Like mirrors, your people are weak, your ships break easily. Your colonies fall one by one. Why do you fight when you cannot win?" Jake looked straight at the alien. "Captain Jake Morrison, Earth Defense Fleet, service number 779421. The commander's face changed. Jake could see anger building behind those black eyes. The alien spoke to his companions in their own language. It sounded like hissing next. With clicking sounds, one of the other aliens pulled out a small device and pointed it at Jake. Pain shot through his body like lightning. Every muscle screamed and his vision went white. The pain lasted only a few seconds but felt much longer. When it stopped, Jake was on his knees, breathing hard. His whole body shook, but he forced himself to look up at the aliens. "Your species is stubborn," Commander Zethkar said. "This is why you make good warriors. But stubbornness alone will not save your worlds." Jake said nothing. "We have captured many humans like you. Soldiers, pilots, officers, they all think they are strong. They all think they can resist." The alien commander walked around Jake in a slow circle. Some break in hours, others take days. But they all break eventually. The pain device hit Jake again. This time he managed not to fall, but his legs felt like water. Sweat ran down his face and mixed with the dried blood. "Tell us about the defense grid around Earth. How many ships guard your homeworld?" "Captain Jake Morrison, Earth Defense Fleet, service number 779421. The third alien said something in their language. Commander Zethkar listened and then made that laughing sound again. "My officer suggests we try a different approach. He thinks you need motivation to speak." The commander's voice became colder. "Perhaps knowing your capture was not accident will help." Jake felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold room. "Yes, human warrior, we chose you. We watched your ship. We learned your patterns. We knew exactly when and where to strike." The alien moved closer until Jake could smell his breath, which was like rotting meat. "Your Captain Morrison is known to us, young officer. Smart tactics, good leader. This is why we wanted you alive." The alien was lying. Jake was sure of it. "The Vorthans attacked everything that moved. They did not care about individual humans. But something in the commander's voice made him wonder. We know much about human military structure. We know your ranks, your training, your weaknesses. Commander Zethkar stood back. But we want to know more. You will teach us. Jake stayed quiet. The commander spoke to his men again. They grabbed Jake's arms and pulled him to his feet. His legs were still weak from the pain device, but they held him up. 3 days, the commander said. 3 days to think about your situation. 3 days to decide if you want to help us or suffer longer. They dragged Jake out of the room and down a long hallway. The walls were the same gray metal as his cell, but covered with more of those strange symbols. Other doors lined the hallway. Probably more prison cells. Jake heard no sounds from behind them. The aliens took him deeper into the ship. They went downstairs and through more hallways. The air got colder and the lights became dimmer. Jake tried to remember the path, but there were too many turns. They stopped at another door, much bigger than the first one. This one had warning. Symbols all around it in both alien writing and what looked like universal danger signs. Red lights blinked next to the door controls. The 2 guard aliens stepped back. Commander Zethkar operated the door controls himself, using multiple keys and codes. Jake could hear heavy machinery moving behind the thick metal. 3 days to think, human warrior, the commander said. But you will not think alone. We have special prisoner here. Very dangerous, very old. Perfect company for stubborn human. The door opened with a grinding sound like breaking bones. Beyond it was complete darkness. Jake could not see anything inside. The creature has been our guest for 200 of your years, Commander Zethkar continued. It refuses to cooperate. It refuses to die. Perhaps you two will have much to discuss. The guards pushed Jake forward. He stumbled into the darkness and heard the door slam shut behind him. The sound of locks and machinery followed, then silence. Jake stood still and waited for his eyes to adjust. The cell was much bigger than his first one, but the darkness was almost complete. He could barely make out the walls and ceiling. The air was warmer here and smelled different. Not just metal and dirt, but something else. Something alive. Then he saw them. 2 points of light in the far corner of the cell, not electric lights. These moved slightly and seemed to pulse with their own glow. As Jake watched, they turned toward him, eyes amber-colored and huge. Something was watching him from the shadows. Jake's heart beat faster, but he forced himself to stay calm. Whatever was in here with him, it had been a prisoner for 200 years. It was probably as much a victim of the Vorthans as he was. Hello, Jake said quietly into the darkness. The glowing eyes blinked once, slowly. Then a voice came from the shadows. Deep and rich, speaking perfect English with an accent Jake could not place. Hello, human. Welcome to the deepest cell in their ship. I'm Korathvul, and I have been waiting a very long time for company. Jake stepped back as the creature moved in the shadows. The amber eyes came closer, and he could hear the sound of something large shifting across the metal floor. His heart pounded, but he tried to stay calm. Do not fear me, human, the voice said. If I wanted to harm you, 200 years of anger would have made me do it already. Slowly, the creature stepped into the weak light that came from under the door. Jake's breath caught in his throat. He was looking at something that should not exist. The being stood 12 feet tall on 2 powerful legs. 4 arms moved with careful grace, each ending in hands that had long fingers with sharp claws. Wings folded against its back, too large for the cell but somehow fitting anyway. Its body was covered in scales that changed color as it moved, shifting from deep blue to purple to almost black, but it was the face that surprised Jake the most. It was not the face of a monster. Intelligence looked out from those amber eyes. The long snout had teeth that could tear through metal, but the expression was tired, not angry. This was not a beast. This was a person. You are staring, Korathvul said with what sounded like amusement. I suppose I am not what you expected to find in a prison cell, Jake found his voice. You're a dragon? Your people would call me that, yes? We called ourselves the Star Dragons, though our real name cannot be spoken with human vocal cords. Korithvul moved to the far side of the cell and sat down, folding his wings more tightly. I am probably the last of my kind. The Vorthans said you've been here for 200 years. 217 by my count. Though time moves strangely in this place, the dragon's voice carried deep sadness. I have been their prisoner since before your species learned to travel between stars. Jake sat down against the wall, keeping some distance but not trying to hide his curiosity. How do you speak English so well? Korithvul's head tilted slightly. Your people broadcast their voices across space. Radio signals, television transmissions, communication between your ships. I have had much time to listen and learn. English, Spanish, Mandarin, Arabic. Many of your languages found their way to me in this cell. Why did they capture you? The dragon was quiet for a long moment. His amber eyes looked at something Jake could not see, perhaps memories from long ago. I was a fool, Korithvul said. Finally, I believed that words could stop war. I came to negotiate with the Vorthan Empire when they first began their expansion across our region of space. You were a diplomat? I was many things, scholar, engineer, teacher. My people valued knowledge above all else. We built wonders among the stars, cities that floated in space, machines that could reshape matter itself. The dragon's voice grew bitter. We thought our technology and wisdom would protect us? We were wrong. Jake leaned forward. What happened? To your people? The Vorthans happened. They saw our peaceful ways as weakness. They saw our beautiful cities as targets. They saw our knowledge as something to steal. Korithvul's claws scraped against the metal floor. I came to their leaders with offers of trade and friendship. They laughed and put me in chains. But you survived. There must be others. Perhaps. I hope so. When the attacks began, many of my people fled to hidden worlds or into the deep space between galaxies. Some may have found safety. The dragon looked at Jake directly. But I will never know. This cell is my world now. Jake felt a strange mix of pity and anger. The Vorthans had destroyed an entire civilization just for conquest. They had kept this being locked away for centuries like a trophy. The Vorthans said you refused to cooperate with them. Korithvul made a sound that might have been laughter, but it held no humor. They want me to give them the secrets of my people's technology. Star maps showing hidden worlds. Weapon designs. The location of our great libraries. The dragon's eyes flashed brighter. I would rather die first. They could have killed you long ago. Why keep you alive? Insurance. Proof of their victory over the Star Dragons. And hope that I will eventually break. Korithvul stretched one of his forearms, working out stiffness from sitting too long. They do not understand that time means little to my kind. We live for thousands of years. What is 2 centuries to me? Jake studied the dragon's face. There was pride there, and strength, but also loneliness. No one should have to spend 200 years alone in a cell. Tell me about your people. Jake said, what were they like? Korithvul's expression softened. Beautiful. Not in appearance, though we were that too. Beautiful in spirit. We love to create and discover. Our children learned to build before they learned to fight. Our greatest heroes were not warriors, but inventors and artists. The dragon began to tell Jake about his world. Cities that grew like crystals from the ground, reaching toward the stars. Gardens that existed in zero gravity, tended by beings who could fly between them. Libraries that held the knowledge of 1,000,000 worlds, protected by technology that could last forever. We had no armies, Korithvul continued. No weapons of war. We settled disputes with discussion and compromise. When we met other species, we offered them gifts of knowledge and friendship. He paused. Perhaps that was our greatest mistake. It wasn't a mistake to be peaceful, Jake said. The Vorthans are the ones who were wrong. Your species does not seem to agree. From what I have learned through your transmissions, humans are quite capable of violence when needed. Jake thought about that. We fight when we have to. But we also explore and learn and try to understand. We're not perfect, but we try to be better than we were. Interesting. The Vorthans capture you because you are warriors, but you speak like a scholar. Jake realized he needed to be careful. His cover story was that he was just a ship captain. But something about talking to this ancient being made him want to be honest. I'm both, I guess. Most humans are. We learn to fight too. Protect what we love, but we also learn other things. Korithvul leaned forward, studying Jake with those intelligent amber eyes. You are not what you appear to be, him and Jake Morrison. Jake felt his heart skip. What do you mean? Your words are too careful, your questions too specific. You know things about technology and civilization that most warriors would not care about? The dragon's voice became gentle. And you look at me like a scientist studying a new discovery, not a soldier facing a potential threat. Jake stayed quiet, unsure how much to reveal. Do not worry, Korithvul said. I have no loyalty to the Vorthans. If you are more than you claim, it matters little to me. We are both prisoners here. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Jake found himself relaxing despite the strange situation. There was something calming about the dragon's presence, like sitting near a wise old teacher. Can I ask you something? Jake said. Of course. The Vorthans keep you in this cell with energy dampeners and restraints. But I get the feeling you could escape if you really wanted to. Korithvul was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. Perhaps my people were not just scholars and artists. We were also engineers of reality itself. We understood forces that your science is only beginning to discover. The dragon looked at his clawed hands. But where would I go? My people are scattered or dead. My world is ash. This cell is ugly, but the universe outside offers little better for the last of the star dragons. Jake felt a sudden determination. Maybe that's about to change. What do you mean? Jake looked directly into those amber eyes. Maybe you're not the last, and maybe you're not as alone as you think. For the first time since Jake had met him, Korithvul looked surprised. The dragon studied Jake's face carefully as if trying to read something hidden there. You know something, Korithvul said. Something about my people. Jake made a decision that would change both their lives. Yeah, he said, I do. Jake took a deep breath. He had spent years keeping secrets, but something about Korithvul made him want to tell the truth. The dragon waited patiently, those amber eyes watching him with quiet intelligence. My name really is Jake Morrison. He began, and I really am a captain in the Earth Defense Fleet, but that's not all I am. Korithvul tilted his head slightly. Continue. I'm also Dr. Jacob Morrison. I have degrees in archaeology and quantum physics. Before the war started, I spent most of my time studying ruins of ancient civilizations. The dragon's eyes widened slightly. You study the remains of dead peoples. Not just study, we try to understand them. To learn from them, to preserve their memory. Jake moved closer, his voice growing more excited. 3 years ago, we found something amazing on a planet called Helios 7. What did you find? Jake pulled his knees up to his chest, remembering that day clearly. Ruins, beautiful ruins of a city that reached toward the sky like it was trying to touch the stars. The architecture was unlike anything we had ever seen. Curved walls that seemed to grow from the ground. Buildings that looked more like art than structures. Korithvul went very still. Describe these buildings. Crystal-like towers that caught light and spread it in rainbow patterns. Gardens built in impossible places, like someone had made plants grow in the air itself. And the materials ... double quotes. Jake shook his head in wonder. We couldn't figure out how they were made. They were stronger than our best steel, but felt almost weightless. The singing towers of Velthar, Korithvul whispered. You found one of our colony worlds. Jake felt his heart race. That's what I hoped. Our archaeologists called them the Dragon Cities because of carvings we found. Images of beings with wings and multiple arms, working together to build incredible things. Korithvul's 4 hands clenched into fists. My people built Velthar 4,000 years ago. It was one of our proudest achievements. A perfect blend of nature and technology. His voice cracked slightly. I helped design the central spire myself. You were there? You helped build it? I was young then, barely 300 years old. It was my first major engineering project. The dragon looked at Jake with new intensity. Tell me, human, what did your people do when they found our city? Jake understood the importance of his answer. Everything between them might depend on what he said next. We studied it with respect. We documented everything carefully. We took nothing that we couldn't replace. We left the city exactly as we found it, except for one small section that we preserved under protective barriers. Jake paused. We even held a ceremony to honor the people who built it, even though we didn't know who they were. Corithville stared at him for a long moment. Then, to Jake's surprise, the dragon's eyes began to glow brighter, and a sound came from deep in his chest. It took Jake a moment to realize the dragon was crying. In 217 years of captivity, no one has ever spoken of my people with respect, Corithville said quietly. The Vorthans see only conquest and control, but your species honors the memory of the dead. We do more than that, Jake said. We learn from them. The quantum principles we found in your city's foundation helped us develop better, faster than light engines. The architectural techniques inspired new ways to build space stations. Your people's knowledge made us better. Corithville wiped his eyes with one of his 4 hands. Why are you telling me this, and why are you here, really? Jake decided to reveal everything. Because Earth scientists think there might be surviving star dragons somewhere in the galaxy, and if there are, we want to find them. Not to capture them or use them, but to learn from them. To maybe work together? That is a beautiful dream, but I'm probably the only one left. Maybe not. We intercepted some Vorthan communications 6 months ago. They mentioned a star dragon prisoner on one of their ships. Earth intelligence sent me undercover to find out more. Corithville's amber eyes went wide. You came here on purpose? You got yourself captured? Partly on purpose. I volunteered for missions in Vorthan space, hoping to get taken prisoner so I could gather intelligence. I never expected to actually find you, though, Jake smiled. The command thought I was crazy. They said no one survives Vorthan interrogation long enough to escape with useful information. They were probably right, but you did not just survive. You found exactly what you were looking for, Jake nodded. And now I want to make you an offer. What kind of offer? Jake stood up and began pacing the small cell, his mind racing with possibilities. Earth doesn't just need military allies in this war. We need technological advantages. The Vorthans are winning because they have bigger fleets and more resources. But if we had access to Star Dragon technology, you want me to help you build weapons? No. Jake stopped pacing and looked directly at the dragon. I want you to help us build a better future. For both our species. Corithville was quiet for a long time, thinking. When he finally spoke, his voice was careful and measured. What exactly are you proposing, Dr. Jake Morrison? Jake sat back down, closer to the dragon this time. First, we escape from this ship. I've been studying Vorthan technology since I got here. Their systems have weaknesses that I think we can exploit, especially if you still have some of your natural abilities. I do, though the energy dampeners limit them significantly. Second, we get back to human space and make contact with Earth. Command, I introduce you to our best scientists and engineers. We share knowledge freely, both ways. Human innovation combined with Star Dragon wisdom. Corithville leaned forward, interested despite himself. And third, we find other Star Dragons. I don't believe you're the last one. Your people were too smart and too spread out across the galaxy to be completely wiped out. Some of them have to be hiding somewhere. Even if that is true, they would not trust easily. The Vorthans have made my people afraid of all other species. Jake felt excitement building as he saw the dragon considering his words, but they might trust you, especially if you came with proof that not all species are like the Vorthans, that some of us can be allies instead of enemies. Corithville studied Jake's face carefully. You really believe this could work? I have to believe it. Because the alternative is that the Vorthons keep expanding until they control the entire galaxy. And then species like yours, and maybe even mine, disappear forever. The dragon stood up, his great wings stretching as much as the cell allowed. He walked to the far wall and placed one hand against the metal, as if feeling for something. There is something you should know, Dr. Morrison. The energy dampeners in this cell are designed to stop most of my abilities, but not all of them. Jake felt a chill of excitement. What can you still do? I can sense the quantum field fluctuations that hold this ship together. I can feel the structural weak points in the hull. And most importantly, Korathvul turned back to Jake with the first real smile the human had seen from him. I can manipulate small amounts of energy in ways the Vorthons do not understand. Enough to help us escape? Possibly. But escape is only the beginning. If we do this, if we really try to build an alliance between our peoples, there will be no going back. The Vorthons will hunt us across the galaxy. Jake stood up and extended his hand to the dragon. Then we better make sure we succeed. Korathvul looked at the offered hand for a moment, then reached out with one of his own. His clawed fingers carefully wrapped around Jake's hand in a gesture of trust and partnership. Very well, Dr. Jake Morrison of Earth. I accept your proposal. Let us see if a human scientist and the last star dragon can change the fate of the galaxy. As they shook hands, Jake felt something he hadn't experienced since his capture. Hope, real, genuine hope that this war could end in something better than just victory or defeat. So, Jake said, how do we start? Korathvul's amber eyes began to glow brighter, and Jake could feel energy building in the air around them. We start by showing the Vorthons that they made a very big mistake when they locked us in here together. Jake watched as Korathvul moved his four hands in careful patterns. The dragon's amber eyes glowed brighter as he focused on something Jake could not see. The air in the cell began to feel different, like the moment before lightning strikes. What are you doing? Jake asked quietly. Feeling the ship's quantum structure, Korathvul replied without breaking his concentration. Every material has a unique resonance frequency. If I can map the patterns, I can find the weak points. Jake pulled out a small piece of metal he had been hiding in his boot. The Vorthons had missed it during their search. Will this help? Korathvul looked at the metal and smiled. That is a power coupling from a human ship. Yes, this will help very much. Over the next several hours, the dragon taught Jake about quantum resonance theory. It was unlike anything Jake had learned in his physics courses, where human science used mathematics and complex equations. Star Dragon knowledge was based on feeling and understanding the natural flow of energy. Your people think too much with your minds, Korathvul explained as he showed Jake how to sense electromagnetic fields. My people learn to think with our entire bodies. We feel the universe around us instead of just observing it. Jake found it difficult at first. His scientific training wanted to measure and calculate everything, but slowly he began to understand what the dragon meant. There was a rhythm to the ship around them, like a heartbeat made of energy and metal. I can feel it, Jake said with excitement. The main power conduits run right above us. Good, and what else do you sense? Jake closed his eyes and tried to extend his awareness the way Korathvul had taught him. The hull is weaker near the rear sections. And there's something strange about the artificial gravity generators. Excellent. You learn quickly for someone who thinks with his mind. Korathvul's tone was approving. The gravity generators are indeed the key to our escape. They use quantum field manipulation to create artificial weight. If we can reverse that process, we can create anti-gravity fields strong enough to tear the ship apart, Jake finished. Precisely. But first, we need to build a device that can generate the correct resonance frequency. Working together, they began constructing what Korathvul called a quantum resonance disruptor. Jake contributed his knowledge of human technology and engineering, while the dragon provided understanding of quantum field theory that was centuries ahead of human science. Jake used the metal from his boot along with pieces of the cell's lighting system and parts of the door mechanism that Korathvul carefully removed without triggering alarms. The dragon's ability to manipulate small amounts of energy allowed him to work with the components in ways that seemed impossible. Your people's approach to technology is interesting, Korthville observed as Jake jury-rigged a power source. Very direct and practical. My people would have spent days designing the perfect solution. You simply make something that works? Sometimes quick and dirty is better than perfect and slow, Jake replied, connecting two wires with a technique that would have horrified his engineering professors. Especially when you're building an escape device in a prison cell. I am beginning to understand why the Vorthans find humans so difficult to defeat. You adapt and improvise in ways they cannot predict. As they worked, Jake told Korthville more about human culture and history. He shared stories of human exploration, scientific discoveries, and the different ways people from Earth approached problems. The dragon was fascinated by humanity's diversity and creativity. Your species has only been traveling between stars for a few centuries, yet you have already developed dozens of different approaches to faster-than-light travel, Korthville said. My people used the same methods for thousands of years. Perhaps we became too comfortable with our knowledge. That's why we need to work together, Jake said. Human innovation combined with Star Dragon wisdom. We can create things neither of our species could build alone. The dragon nodded thoughtfully. Yes, I am beginning to see the possibilities. Your rapid development techniques combined with our deep understanding of quantum mechanics could produce remarkable results. Over the next 2 days, they refined their escape plan. Korthville taught Jake more about Star Dragon technology, including the principles behind faster-than-light communication and energy manipulation. Jake shared human knowledge of tactics, improvisation, and battlefield adaptation. The device is almost complete, Korthville said on the second night. But I must warn you, using it will be dangerous. The quantum cascade could spread throughout the entire ship. How dangerous? Jake asked. The ship could break apart completely. Or the anti-gravity fields could crush us before we can escape. Or the Vorthans could detect what we are doing and stop us. Jake considered this. What are our chances of success? Perhaps 30%. And our chances of surviving if we stay here? Korthville was quiet for a moment. Eventually 0%. The Vorthans will either execute us or use us for experiments. Then 30% sounds pretty good to me. The dragon studied Jake's face. You are not afraid? I'm terrified, Jake admitted, but I'm also excited. If this works, we could change everything. Not just for us, but for both our species. On the third day, they heard unusual activity outside their cell. Footsteps in the corridors, voices speaking in urgent Vorthan, and the sound of machinery being moved around. Something is happening, Jake said. Korthville pressed one hand against the wall, using his abilities to sense what was going on in the ship around them. His expression grew serious. The ship is preparing for battle. They have detected human vessels approaching. Jake felt his heart race. A rescue mission? Possibly. Or perhaps just a patrol that wandered too close to Vorthan space. The dragon looked at Jake intently. Either way, this may be our best chance. The crew will be distracted by the approaching battle. Jake picked up their improvised quantum disruptor. It looked like a collection of random parts held together with wire and hope, but Korthville assured him it would work. Are you ready for this? Jake asked. I have been ready for 217 years, Korthville replied. The question is, are you prepared for what comes after our escape? Jake thought about that. If they succeeded, he would be introducing humanity to technology that could change civilization itself. The responsibility was enormous. I've spent my whole career studying ancient civilizations, Jake said. I've seen what happens when knowledge is lost or destroyed. I won't let that happen to your people's legacy. Korthville placed one of his large hands on Jake's shoulder. And I will not let the Vorthans destroy your people the way they destroyed mine. We are partners now, Dr. Jake Morrison. Partners in hope and partners in the fight for a better galaxy. Jake felt the weight of that partnership, but also its strength. Alone, he was just one human soldier in a war that humanity was losing. Alone, Korthville was the last survivor of a dead civilization. But together they had the potential to change everything. Partners, Jake agreed. Now let's show the Vorthans what happens when they underestimate both humans and dragons. Corathville activated the quantum disruptor. The device began to hum with barely contained energy, and Jake could feel the ship's structure beginning to respond to the resonance cascade they had created. "Once we start this, there is no stopping it," the dragon warned. Jake gripped his makeshift weapon and prepared himself for whatever came next. "Then let's make sure we finish it." The alliance between human and dragon was about to face its first real test. And somewhere in the space around them, the forces that would determine the fate of the galaxy were already moving into position. The escape was about to begin. The quantum disruptor made a high whining sound as energy built up inside it. Jake felt the hair on his arms stand up from the electrical charge in the air. Corathville's amber eyes glowed brighter as he guided the device's power into the ship's structure. "Now," the dragon whispered. Jake pressed the activation switch. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the lights in their cell began to flicker. The metal walls started to vibrate with a deep humming sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "It's working," Jake said. Throughout the ship, the quantum cascade spread like ripples in water. The artificial gravity fluctuated, making Jake's stomach lurch as he briefly felt weightless. Emergency alarms began wailing in the distance. "The resonance is spreading faster than I expected," Corathville said. "We need to move quickly." The cell door, weakened by the quantum disruption, buckled and cracked. Corathville placed his 4 hands against it and pushed. The thick metal bent like soft plastic and tore open with a screech of breaking steel. Jake grabbed their makeshift weapons and followed the dragon into the corridor. The hallway was filled with flashing red lights and the sound of Vorthon voices shouting orders. The quantum cascade was causing system failures throughout the ship. "Which way to the communication array?" Jake asked. Corathville closed his eyes for a moment, using his enhanced senses to map the ship around them. "Up 3 levels, then toward the front section, but we will face resistance." They moved quickly through the corridors. The artificial gravity kept switching on and off, sometimes making them float and sometimes slamming them against the floor. Jake used his military training to navigate the chaos while Corathville's natural abilities let him sense danger before they encountered it. The first group of Vorthon guards found them at a junction between corridors. 6 aliens with energy weapons surrounded them, shouting commands in their clicking language. Jake raised his hands as if surrendering, but Corathville stepped forward. The dragon's wings spread wide, filling the narrow hallway. His amber eyes blazed with power that had been held back for over 2 centuries. "You have kept me caged long enough," Corathville said in perfect Vorthon. The guards opened fire, but their energy beams seemed to bend around the dragon. Corathville raised one hand and the air itself became solid, forming a barrier that stopped the weapon's fire. With his other 3 hands, he gestured at the walls around the guards. The metal corridors began to flow like water, reshaping themselves. The Vorthons found themselves trapped in a cage of twisted steel that had been the floor and ceiling just moments before. "How did you do that?" Jake asked as they continued moving. "Matter is just energy in a stable pattern," Corathville explained. "Change the pattern, change the matter. My people learned this principle long ago. They fought their way up through the ship's levels." Jake used human tactics and improvised weapons while Corathville demonstrated abilities that seemed like magic. The dragon could bend metal with his thoughts, create energy barriers, and even briefly control the ship's gravity in small areas. But the real surprise came when they reached the communication deck. Commander Zethkar was waiting for them with a squad of elite Vorthon warriors. "The beast and the lying human," the commander said, pointing his weapon at them. "You will not escape this ship." "Actually," Jake said, "I think we will." He activated a small device he had built while they were planning their escape. It sent out a pulse that interfered with Vorthon weapons, causing them to overload and shut down. The trick would only work once, but once was enough. Corathville moved faster than Jake had ever seen anyone move. The dragon crossed the room in a single bound, his claws extended. The Vorthon warriors tried to fight with physical weapons, but they were no match for a being who had spent 2 centuries planning his revenge. Commander Zethkar backed against the wall, his black eyes wide with fear. "Impossible." The energy dampeners should prevent your abilities. Your dampeners were designed for normal prisoners, Korithvil said. I am the last star dragon. I am beyond your understanding. Jake reached the communication console and began. Working on the controls? His fingers flew over the alien interface as he accessed the ship's transmission array. What are you doing? Zethkar demanded. Calling home, Jake replied. He sent a high-priority transmission toward Earthspace, using codes that would identify him to Earth Defense Command. The message contained everything he had learned about Vorthan fleet movements, ship designs, and, most importantly, the existence of surviving star dragons. The transmission is away, Jake announced. Earth Command will know everything within hours. Zethkar raised a backup weapon, but Korithvil was faster. The dragon's hand closed around the commander's throat, lifting the alien off the ground. You destroyed my people, Korithvil said quietly. You kept me prisoner for over 2 centuries. You deserve to die. Jake stepped forward. But you're not going to kill him. Korithvil looked at Jake in surprise. Why not? He has earned death. Many times over. Because killing him won't bring your people back. And because we're going to need him alive to help us find other Star Dragon prisoners. The dragon considered this for a long moment. Then he dropped the commander to the floor, but kept him restrained with bands of twisted metal. You may be right, Dr. Morrison. Very well. He lives. They quickly accessed the ship's computer system and downloaded everything they could about Vorthan operations. Jake was particularly interested in files about other special prisoners that might be star dragons. Found something, Jake said. Excitedly. 3 other ships have prisoners matching Korithvil's description. They're scattered across Vorthan space. My people, Korithvil whispered. They are alive. The ship shuddered as the quantum cascade reached critical systems. Through the viewports, Jake could see human ships approaching. The rescue fleet had arrived. Time to go, Jake said. They fought their way to the ship's hangar bay, where Vorthan. Scout ships were docked. Korithvil's abilities made short work of the bay doors and security systems. Jake used his pilot training to prep one of the smaller vessels for launch as they lifted off from the dying Vorthan ship. Jake watched through the viewport as Earth Defense Fleet vessels surrounded them. His heart swelled with pride as he saw the familiar markings of home. Unknown vessel, identify yourself, came the voice over the radio. This is Captain Jake Morrison, Earth Defense Fleet. Serial number 779421. I'm coming home and I'm bringing a friend. 6 months later, Jake stood in the observation deck of New Geneva Station, watching the construction of the first joint human-dragon research facility. The structure combined the best of both species technology with crystalline spires that caught starlight and metal frameworks that could be reconfigured as needed. Korithvil joined him at the viewing window. The dragon looked different now, healthier and stronger. His scales had regained their full color, shifting between brilliant blues and purples in the starlight. The first new star dragon city in 3 centuries, Korithvil said with wonder. In his voice, built by humans and dragons working together, Jake added. Just like we planned? They had rescued the other 3 star dragons from Vorthan ships using technology that combined human tactics with dragon abilities. Each rescue had been easier than the last as they perfected their methods. More importantly, word was spreading through the galaxy that the star dragons were returning. The message pods we sent to the hidden worlds are starting to get responses, Korithvil said. My people are coming out of hiding? Slowly, carefully, but they are coming. Jake smiled. And the Vorthans? Retreating to their core systems? They cannot fight an alliance that has both human adaptability and star dragon technology. Through the viewport, Jake could see human and dragon engineers working side by side on the station's construction. Children from both species played together in the recreation areas, learning each other's languages and customs. You know what the best part is? Jake said. What? This is just the beginning. We're not just rebuilding your civilization or protecting mine. We're creating something completely new. Something better than either of our species could build alone. Corthville placed one of his large hands on Jake's shoulder. The partnership between the Scholar Warrior of Earth and the Last Star Dragon has become something greater than we ever imagined. Jake looked out at the stars where human and dragon ships patrolled together, protecting the growing alliance. Somewhere out there, other species were watching and learning that cooperation was stronger than conquest. Not the last star dragon anymore, Jake said with a grin. Just the first of a new generation. Corthville's amber eyes glowed with happiness. And for the first time in centuries, the future looked bright for the star dragons and their human allies.